Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Trainz Simulator 2022. Trainz with a Z. And today we're going to be taking a look at another product from the Switchback. This time an actual little route. And kind of a fun take. This is the Fillmore County Railroad. It is a fictional route. It's not a real actual thing, but it's kind of fun in that it's based on a railroad that's barely functional. I mean, like one step above bankruptcy kind of functional. So it's based out in the Midwest in the lovely corn and wheat fields, and weirdly enough, that's not one of the industries that the railroad serves. But it's based on like an old Milwaukee Road branch that has been sold off, and it's still a functioning railroad, but only just functioning. Only just barely. And so, yeah, I mean, this is a route that's built a lot around fun little scenes and such. There's not a lot to do per se. I guess here's a grain elevator. I didn't realize that. I'm an idiot. But yeah, there's not a whole ton of stuff to do. However, it's kind of in line with the Switchback and what they kind of prioritize in. A lot of their stuff tends to be geared very much towards scenes, fun scenes, and kind of photograph / video making routes. And this is pretty much on par with that. So you just saw I went end to end there in my little fly around. It's not a long route by any means. It's pretty short. That being said, it is very slow. The speed limit is very low, and for good reason, as we will see whenever I start when I get a train moving along the line. The track, as you can see, it's meant to represent, long, overgrown. It's rusty. It's barely used. It's not well cared for, and as such, the track condition has been modified to represent that. So speed limits are pretty low. And this is the end of the other side. So as you guys saw, there's not a whole lot to do per se. Not a lot of switching. This is pretty much your area of switching. You really have, what is it, 1, 2 industries, the grain elevator if it counts, and then the locomotive sliding here. So you really only have a couple of industries to serve. There's not really a point to long trains. You won't really see long trains and heavy use, but that's kind of what the route is meant to represent. That's just kind of the point in it. So it's pretty cool. Now this is a little bit older. It's not wildly older, but it is definitely one of their kind of core routes. It's a little bit older. It's been around a little bit longer than like their Hatchet Creek routes, and some of those things will show. If you were to compare and contrast, you could see where some things have been improved on in their modeling capabilities and such. But it's still a pretty neat one. Overall, it's still pretty neat. So, anywho, let's pop up our little display here and hop down here to our little waiting train. So this is kind of our interchange. We have a mainline railroad over here. Still a functioning mainline railroad, and it's already got a kind of a fun scene where there's an old crossing tower here that's been torn up and abandoned. pretty fun to look at. And of course the actual switch with a interchange siding right here. This pretty much is the railroad. Now, unfortunately, well, I guess it's kind of a flip-flop. Fortunately and unfortunately. Fortunately, it's a real small route. There's not a lot of tiles, so it runs really, really smooth. I mean, look at it. We're sitting here looking at half the route right now. My computer's got the majority of it loaded, and we're still sitting at 96 frames a second. So it runs really, really good. And mind you, I'm on a 5-6-year-old computer right now. My machine is dated equipment-wise, and it runs it just fine. The flip side of that is, as you can see, you can very much see the edge of the route in all directions. It's kind of blocked off with the tree lines, but it's still pretty noticeable, like here, where it's only a couple hundred yards from the tracks that the route ends. So it's a bit of an unfortunate thing, but it is what it is. You know, again, there's kind of a two-way street. On one hand, it runs really, really smooth, and it's quite compact. And on the other hand, you can see the edge of the route. So, you know, do that as you will. But let's get our little train here going. We're going to be using a little 45 tonner. Unfortunately, no longer available. But these little center cab switchers are so fitting for this route. There actually is rolling stock that is meant to go with this route, or at least locomotives. There's a couple of locomotives that were made for this route, and a caboose, I believe. However, for some wacky reason, the locomotives are not wanting to work with me. The caboose is pretty much a Milwaukee Road caboose with a rebrand on it, so it's not a huge thing that I don't dive into it. The locomotives, however, actually, they look really nice. I've seen the screenshots and a couple of the guys that have them. Just for some wacky reason, mine doesn't want to work, so we're going to use the 45. That's okay. Again, like I said, these little center cab switchers and smaller stuff like this really fit this route really, really well. I mean, this would be something not out of the ordinary. Go ahead and pull up our HUD here. No speed limit signs. Don't know what's up with that. I'm pretty sure somewhere on the route there actually is speed limits, though. I don't understand why they're not showing up. As you can see with the track condition, there's a lot of wobble, a lot of lean. It's rough track. It's old. It's worn out. So that's pretty fun to look at. The scenery is really nice overall. Again, it is a little bit older. There are some things I'm not particularly fond of, such as the heavy usage of this crisscross grass. It's one of those assets that I really wish would get replaced by something better at some point in the near future. And the same for the smaller undergrowth, like the bushes and whatnot. They're all the crisscross bushes. I don't like either one of them, largely because, as you can see right now, there's shadows on one side of the asset and not shadows on the other. So if you're looking at it at anything but the perfect angle like this, it shows. That's not a fault of TSB. That's more just a lack of assets. Hint, wink, wink for those of you asset creators out there. Grass and bushes be really nice, because as you can see, we have 3D trees track line trackside, which is really nice. I love the heavy usage of 3D trees trackside. Well, 3D-ish. Now there is a bunch of these crisscross trees mixed in. I can't imagine how bad my performance would be if this entire block here was 3D trees. Personally, I would have cut the line right here and left all of this here 3D trees, because these crisscross trees have the same issues that the grass and the bushes do, where one side's shadow, one side's not. That's just me. So like places like here, these need to be replaced with 3D trees, honestly. Immediately trackside here, there's really no need for the crisscross trees. Given the shortness of the route, there's a really nice use of little towns and fun little scenes like this. There's a farmer out here. Don't know who he's talking to, but he's talking. An old farm all tractor. And you know, these little towns and whatnot, they look awesome. A little baseball park here. But for the most part, these little towns look really, really nice. Now, there's no major highways or anything. They're all blacktop roads. Sometimes that irks me, sometimes it doesn't. Having been across the better half of the Midwest, actually having been across all of the Midwest at one point in my life, but I don't remember part of it. But having been across most of the Midwest in my rememberable times, a lot of the roads out there are these blacktop roads. All the farm to market roads and whatnot are all blacktop roads like this, so it's not too weird. The choice in houses are really, really nice. The whole abandoned look is really cool. Now, it's not necessarily set in a modern time period. Most of the automobiles and whatnot are like 60s, maybe 70s. Which kind of fits the vibe. Some things could stand to be filled in a little better, like in these little towns. It'd be nice to see some more characters used, some more automobiles. Given the size of the route, I would have focused a little bit more on filling in, giving a little more life to the route. Because the speeds are slow, the route's short, you're gonna notice small things like that. So I do wish that there was a heavier usage of cars and people and such. Maybe some more equipment doing things here, there, and everywhere. Maybe out in the fields and such. But overall, the core design of the route is really nice. Like I said, this is one of their slightly older routes, so some things like that will show. They've definitely gotten a lot better with that Hatchet Creek version 3. You definitely can see much more life to the route overall. But again, I mean, this route looks really nice. This would be a nice mergeable route, a route to add on to another route. So you've got a mainline route, want to add kind of this abandoned-ware-ish. Speaking of which, while we have it flying by, there is a functional invisible rail all the way around the route. You saw it down here at the very beginning of the route here. We have a airport right here. Now, unfortunately, the airport doesn't have kind of like little siding invisible track pullouts for one to place down different aircraft to use. So that's a bit of a downside, but again, it's not a big thing. It's not like aircraft are the focus of the route, so I'm not going to be heartbroken over it. But it is a functional invisible rail. It is set up at a low altitude because it is kind of meant for like a crop duster, which I couldn't remember for the life of me. It's not called an AgCat in Trainz, so I couldn't remember what the crop duster listing is. So I just got a Stearman, which the big whoop. Stearmans used to be very popular crop dusters, especially after World War II, whenever a lot of them were sold off as surplus. It was a very popular aircraft to be used as a crop duster. So it's not too terribly out of place. So we do have do have an invisible rail for an airplane to kind of fly around, and you know, that's a nice bit of life on the route. You know, instead of having just the floating, static airplane, you have a flying airplane. Let's catch up to our train here. Cattle field here over here. It's kind of nice. Still tootling along. What are we doing? We're doing about 15. 15, 20 mile an hour is about right for this route. With the wacky track conditions, if you go any quicker, you'll kind of notice that like side to side wobble. Go ahead and kick it up a notch, see if we can get 20. It is a 45 tonner. I think these top off at like 20, 25 mile an hour in real life, so. Makes me sad as balls. There used to be like 3 or 4 of these 45 tonners available from, I think it was like Appalachian Mountain Works or something like that. And then they just kind of fell off the face of the planet. And they took this locomotive with them. And it was such a nice little model. It used to be like an Eagle River model. They had their own proprietary model, like a New England Scenic or something. And then, of course, the RP&P for coal country. Unfortunately, the RP&P model is the only one I've got left. Such a fitting locomotive for this route. One of those fun areas. You got a nice little farm here with a hay barn. See, again, this is one of those spots where it would have been helpful to have a little bit more people, clutter, vehicles. The building placement's nice. The building choice is nice. Just the lack of characters is just kind of eh. Another farm mall. Everybody's fans of farm malls out here. Here's kind of a fun one. And my grandpa would nail that stump every time. They get mad because he tear the snot out of his tractor. How fitting. See, this is kind of one of those things where a little bit of the oldness shows. To be perfectly honest, this field would have been better being a PBR grass texture rather than all these crisscrosses. They don't play well, I don't think. I guess like a PBR texture instead. Also, unfortunately, there's not any auto triggers or horn, bell, or nothing like that, which is not terribly hard to do oneself. It's just kind of a convenience of life when a route developer places them down themselves. So you can't really set up AI without the markers. Which brings me to my next point. One of those things it irks the fire out of me that some developers do this. No route markers anywhere. It's like the I was about to say the kind of the end of route markers, but otherwise there's no route markers, which, come on guys, you can't really set up AI without route markers. And route markers kind of tell you what's what where. Which, you know, we got them here and we got them here, so why not place them down the rest of the way? So that is I think my big disappointment with this route is lack of route markers. All too often ends up being a disappointment I have with a lot of routes. Route markers I harp on them a lot, I know, but I like to set it up so that AI can run around and do things. And if you don't have route markers, it's kind of hard to do that. So, again, it is what it is. It's not like it's necessarily hard to do myself. It's just kind of a quality of life thing when it's already included. Kind of a nice usage of a school over here. Schools are one of those things that tend to get avoided. Now, once again, though, the lack of characters and whatnot is very noticeable compared to their other routes. Their newer stuff. Like, it's a school over here. And nobody's at school, no teachers, no people. It's like it's a Sunday. But then again, we got like an ice cream shop over here. There's not a lot going on. We got a Dairy Queen here. So I definitely would like to see more characters on automobiles, more kind of clutter. But that is end-to-end on the Fillmore County, available from the Switchback. I definitely recommend checking it out. Again, just a lot of little things on the route. They're not necessarily big. As a whole, the route is very cool. It's a nice take on an almost abandoned railroad. Kind of a what would one look like sort of deal. And they do have proper equipment to go with it. It does have kind of a little bit of a lore to it. However, it fits in really well if you just like running the switching locomotives as kind of mainline power. It fits in real well with that. And you like shorter trains. There are train stations. They're kind of meant to look more like no longer used train stations. However, if you got like a doodlebug or something, like the Pennsylvania doodlebugs from K&L, great route for it. It's a great route for those doodlebugs. Point A, point B. Here's the other station. So yeah, I mean overall, really nice route. Just some touch-ups here, there, and everywhere that it could stand to have that would definitely improve on it. But as a whole, it's a great core, great base route. And again, for those of you that like route merging or just like something where maybe the smaller power fits in a lot better than the big GEVOs and whatnot, then you'll really like this route. So I definitely recommend going and checking it out. It is available on their website. Link in the description on where you can pick it up. And yeah, I will see you guys next time.